Well, let's begin with a little stretch. And as you stretch, just really bring your attention to what you are doing, to how you're moving your body, to what parts of your body are getting engaged. Try to let the impulse for the stretch come from the body. And as we get more practiced with listening to the body, we'll have a better sense of what that means when we're listening to the body. And I'm going to apologize now because there is some sort of notification on my computer, and I'm not sure what it is or how to turn it off. So when we hear it, we will treat it like a mindfulness bell that will just remind us to come back to the present moment. So it doesn't have to be a hindrance. It can be a welcome addition to our practice. So just listening and stretching what needs to be stretched, finding a nice sustainable posture with our shoulders above our hips. And again, sort of, if you're in front of a screen for a good part of the day, being mindful that the bottom of your chin is parallel to the ground. You don't want to be jutting out and you don't want to be tucked under. Those are two postures that in our modern world of sitting in front of computers, we can easily fall into, and it's really bad for our alignment and for our back. So we really want to make the sitting posture as easy as possible. There's very few muscles that need to be engaged if we are properly stacked. If our skeleton is being supported properly, then we really don't have to have a lot of muscular tension to stay in the position that we're in. So let's end our practice of embodying or getting in with our physicality, getting in touch with our physicality, just by rolling our shoulders back so that we can open this heart region. You might notice too, do you feel more vulnerable? Oftentimes we are hunched over. Particularly as women, we can learn this habit of not taking up a lot of space. And so you might notice a pretty significant difference in the body just by rolling the shoulders back and opening up the chest. That can make us feel a little bit more exposed. But what we're doing here is we're opening the heart so that we can be ready to communicate with the world, both sending and receiving the compassion that we will hopefully get to touch in with as we practice. So just bringing your awareness to the contact that you're making with the furniture that you're sitting on. Feeling the weight of your body. Feeling the pressure points. And so by that, I mean any part of your body that is in contact with a solid object, just noticing the pressure. Your foot in your shoe on the floor, the tension between your foot pressing on the floor, gravity holding you there. I like to imagine a gentle pushback from the earth against my foot. And then noticing whatever furniture that you're on, that you feel confident that this is solid, sturdy, well-built, and it can hold you. So you don't have to hold on to a lot of tension in the body. Again, when we are sitting in an aligned posture, we don't need a lot of extra work from the muscles. You could just let gravity and the furniture and a few core muscles engage and do the work, do the heavy lifting. You don't need your eyebrows to help you sit. So if you're noticing tension there, you might just see if you can release that. You might notice if you're clenching your buttocks. That's another favorite way we can hold tension, unnecessary for right now. You might check in and see if your shoulders are hunched up by your ears, and if so, just letting them drop. And imagining your skeleton and imagining that the muscles of the skeleton are just kind of melting away. They're just dropping away, hanging from the skeleton, not all bound up and tight. And then let's just connect with our breath. And as we feel the breath moving in and moving out, we know that not only are we connected to the environment through the points of pressure of our body against solid objects, but we're also connected on the top side of our body with the lighter touch of the environment, where our clothes might be gently being held on the surface of the body. We can feel that touch, that pressure, much more subtle, nuanced. And we can feel the air around us, even. There is no part of our body that is not being touched and held by the environment. Some of them are easily accessible through feeling the weight of the body or the pressure, and some of them are a little more nuanced and sublime, a little harder to feel into. But if we turn our attention there, we might sense the current of air across exposed skin or a temperature change. And as we begin today, let's just become aware of our bodies in our mind's eye and the shape that they're making, sitting in this space, the space of your room, the space of whatever environment you're finding yourself in. And feeling the spaciousness outside of your body. Perhaps sensing the container of your body within your skin. And then outside, on the other side of that skin, is this air, this room, this spaciousness. So just letting yourself feel a bit the boundary between you as you sit here and the space that you're sitting in. And we're going to invite our attention in a little bit closer to our internal awareness by asking ourselves the question about internal space. So we have this spaciousness on the outside of the boundary of our skin. What about spaciousness that might exist on the inside of our skin? Where in your body might you be able to land on something that feels spacious? So if you want, you can just do a little scan to see, where does this idea of spaciousness exist for you inside the body? And if you get stuck, an easy place to go to is the breath. We can feel the lungs expand and contract, and that might be a place of spaciousness. We may also feel that breath deeper in the belly as the diaphragm shifts up and down with the inhalation and exhalation. We may feel the expanse, letting our tummies pooch out, and feel space in the belly. Another place that we might notice spaciousness is in this aligned posture that we're sitting in, with the spine neatly stacked. Can we sense space between our vertebrae? And if it helps you to imagine that there's a string tied at your tailbone that runs up through your spinal column and up through the top of your head, gently pulling on you, gently lifting from the top of your head up, you can sort of increase the sensation of space between the vertebrae. As we get older in our lives, and also as we progress through the day, our bodies start collapsing in on themselves. So by the end of the day, there's a little less space between those vertebrae. So can we, through good posture, create some space, elongate our spines, feel a gentle tug at the crown of the head, lifting us up, creating space. So where else might you be experiencing spaciousness in the body right now? Sometimes in our practice, we get the instruction of allowing the eyes, the eyeballs, to become soft. We tend to carry a lot of stress and tension around the eye and the furrowing of the brow, the bridge of the nose. So can you maybe create some space by allowing your eyeballs to soften? And connecting with the breath. If you're stuck on this idea of spaciousness, you might look for its opposite. You might look for contraction, constriction, restriction, and see where you note that in the body. You could even experiment with tightening a muscle as we would in a progressive muscle relaxation, just tightening it and releasing it and noting the difference. And that might help you identify some of this internal spaciousness. And now we're just going to shift our attention away from the somatic awareness and move into our head space. And this is a space a lot of us like to live in, so it's probably a little bit more familiar. But we're not looking for thought here. That's the part that, that's our go-to. We look for thought, we look for storyline, we look for meaning making. But I'd invite you into your head space in search of this very quality that we've been exploring and being curious about, which is spaciousness in the mind. What might that mean? How do we experience spaciousness in the mind? Perhaps it is the moment between thought. If we can allow our awareness to rest there. Perhaps there is spaciousness in that moment when we have caught ourselves in thought, when we've caught ourselves in planning or reviewing or anticipating. And then we bring ourselves back to a baseline of nowhere to go, nothing to do. Just being in this moment and this breath. Can we sense the spaciousness of mind in letting go of all the ways the mind likes to work and think and create stories and solve problems? Is there spaciousness for us there? And here too, we might play a little with contrast because the dual nature of the mind often knows A and not A. And so if we can remember a time when thought was pressing and fleeting and we were just busy, our heads were full and busy, and then we take a breath and release that and just allow our awareness to rest in the present without doing. We might catch a glimpse of spaciousness. So let's connect with the breath, make sure that we're still feeling that inhalation, that exhalation. And let's shift our attention now to the heart space. And we physically began our practice with rolling back our shoulders to expand and open the heart space in a literal way to create more space in the environment around the chest. But if we think about the internal heart space, how might we experience spaciousness there? We often talk about the hinges of the heart and whether the heart is open or whether the heart is closed. And we always want to make sure not to overvalue one over the other. There are times when the heart is appropriately closed or a little more protected. But even in that space, even if this is a day in which your heart needs its gates closed a little bit, perhaps you just feel full, or you're noticing a great deal of emotionality, or there's some suffering there. We might need to close a little bit, but that doesn't mean that we let go of spaciousness. Can we create some room around the suffering of the heart? We don't need to clamp down on it. We don't need to dive in and wallow in it. Can we feel what we might be feeling in the spirit of expansiveness? Remembering that no matter what we might be feeling, this is the nature of being a human being. No matter what is coming up for us, 7 billion other people have experienced the same thing. So can we create room around that? It's also possible in this moment that our hearts feel quite open. What is that experience of spaciousness? What does having those gates open allow to transpire between you and the environment? And again, there's no right or wrong. In the healthy heart, the gates are always opening and closing in response to needing to protect ourselves. So the trick is making sure that those hinges are well oiled so we can respond as we need to in real time to the environment. And now, because we're all advanced players, let's imagine that we can light it all up with spaciousness, that we can include the openness that we found in the body, that we can at the same time be with the expansive nature of mind, and in addition, sense into the spaciousness of the heart. We're going to light it all up. We're going to flip all those switches on at once so that we are just sitting here on our cushion or our chair in one great big experience of spaciousness. What might that be like? Not constricted, not restrained, not trapped, but full of expansive possibility and able to manage whatever might show up because there's plenty of room. Room in our bodies, room in our thoughts, room in our hearts. Connecting with the breath. Plenty of space to welcome it all. Welcome all the experiences of being a human being. Inviting everything in. And knowing that if we need to shut our doors a little bit to protect ourselves, we can hold on to that sense of space and expansion. We don't have to shut it all down. We don't have to crumple all up. Making room for whatever life has to offer us. So in a moment, we're going to transition out of our practice, but we don't want to leave before it's time to leave. We want to spend a few more moments here in this expansive place. And perhaps we might consider how we can take the essence of this out from our practice and into our lives. Where is a place in your life that might feel a little collapsed? Maybe it's collapsed around the body, around protecting a part that's been injured, around illness. Maybe it's collapsed in the mind. There are ruminative thoughts or loops that you're stuck in. Or perhaps there's restriction in the heart. Maybe there's a situation where it's hard to access compassion. How can we take this glimpse of expansiveness that we've touched on? How can we take this spaciousness into our lives? This attitude of welcoming, of making room for it all. How can we concretize that and make it applicable and relevant in leading our lives? So just take a moment to think about that. Perhaps setting an intention for yourself for the rest of the day or the week. And before we leave our practice today, resting together in these next few breaths, and any benefit that we feel we may have received, offering it out to anyone who is feeling trapped and restricted and confined in their own life, whether by their body, by their mind, by their heart. If you have touched on this space of expansion, of welcoming, perhaps we could just take the next few breaths to offer some hope, some relief from suffering to all those who may be in need.